that I get out of doing this job. And people say, how do you do that? Why do you do that? Yeah, I get to meet remarkable people. And not only remarkable people from different parts of the country, but I get to present to you people who are right here in Beaver County that have done so many things worldwide that you may not even be aware of. And one of those gentlemen is with us today, who, with his brother, wrote so many hits. And I see a website called Mo Philly and stuff like that. Melvin Steals Senior. I always want to say Junior. Melvin. Yeah, I know there's a junior. That's why I always want to say Melvin Steals Jr. Melvin Steals Sr. is with us, who, along with his brother, wrote a lot of great. Welcome to the show.
Oh, my pleasure to be here.
Just want to say thank you for coming on, because, as I mentioned to you before we turned the microphones on, when Jimmy Ross of the Jaggers found out that you were going to be with us today, he said, "Wow, Melvin!" And I knew you guys knew each other from way back. And you wrote songs that they recorded.
Yeah, Jimmy has a fantastic voice.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear him, it just fills me with a lot of inspiration. He's a great singer.
Got to find my way back home, right?
Right.
That was the song that you wrote for him.
Right.
And was it specifically for the Jaggers, or was it out there and they contacted you and say, "Hey, we'd like to cut this one"?
Well, at that time, we had just signed with Gamble and Huff, and they were telling us about this white group in Beaver County.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, that's where we're from.
Yeah.
And they arranged for us to meet the Jaggers up in Elwood City. And around that time, my wife and I were supposed to get married on August 10th, 1968. And 2 weeks before the wedding, I foolishly sent her a telegram telling her, I don't want to get married. And
Cold feet?
It's just that period in time. And so we didn't get married, and my mother eventually came to Philly. My brother and I were starving up in Germantown.
Uh-huh.
You know, there was a knock on the door. We opened the door, and there was our irate mother. And our biggest brother, like Tom Atlas, and a brother-in-law. My mother started crying, and she made me come back and take the teaching job in Aliquippa. And when I came back, there was a Bible in the home that my wife had given me when I graduated from high school. And inside that Bible, on a sliver of paper, was her grandmother's address. And that's how I found her. But that song, Gotta Find My Way Back Home, is about me looking for and finding Adrena.
And the Jaggers recorded that and got it on record in 1968?
Yes. And that record sold 100,000 units in Pittsburgh.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I've got it here right now, so let me play some of it.
A long, long time. I don't know what must possess my mind. Like a madman, I'm turning to the street. Now I'm searching for the place where my baby sleeps. I've been away too long. Gotta find my way back home. I know I was wrong. I should have stayed at home. They told me she packed up and went away. And where the little girl went, I couldn't rightly say. So I'm moving on down the line. Gonna search everywhere till I find that little girl of mine. I've been away too long. Gotta find my way back home. I know that I was
And then it fades out. It's a 2-minute song, and you said it sold over 100,000 units.
In this market. Thank God, Jimmy, I found my way back home.
Oh, man. And so that's really the inspiration was it that you were not going to get married.
Right.
And they called you back.
What's interesting on this song, the arrangers were Tom Bell and Bobby Martin.
Okay. Yeah.
Tom Bell and Bobby Martin did the arrangements on a lot of great songs. Tom Bell went on to become who he is, the Tom Bell.
Right. And you guys were just young, you and your brother.
Yeah, we were 22.
22 at the time. From Aliquippa.
From L.A. Lovely Aliquippa.
All right, that's great. But what inspired you? I mean, what made you think that you guys could be songwriters?
Well, it started in a bathtub when we were 8 and 9 years old. We were big enough to get in the tub together.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to emulate the music we heard on the radio. And so it got in us. Plus the church that we went to in Lockstown called Mount Olive, the singing, it just was so inspirational. So music became something that we loved to do. We would sing. We had singing groups. And my twin brother Mervin more or less taught himself how to play the piano. Eddie Holman, who was our classmate at Cheney, showed him how to structure songs, and then we started singing and writing, and we lied, or Mervin lied and said we were songwriters. We had but we got in.
And Eddie Holman, people will know his name from 1960. Said at least one of them, "Hey There, Lonely Girl."
Yeah, he was a college classmate, and one day when he was walking through the snack bar, Mervin knew when he would be in there, and as he was walking by, Mervin stuck his foot out and tripped him, and they became friends, and such good friends that wherever there was a piano on the campus, Mervin and Eddie would go, and Eddie would show them songs, and they would write songs, and they were so loud, they kicked them out of every building.
And what was your role in all this?
I just went along, and we sang, but Mervin came up with a song. He had a girlfriend from Aliquippa, and my mother did not approve, and he wrote a song. He came up with a song called "I'm Not Strong Enough," and that was the very first Steals Brothers song ever recorded. It's by a group called the Four Perfections, which was Mervin and me, a guy named Raymond Chip Porter from Penn Hills, and a guy named Barry LaSenne from West Philly. And unbeknownst to us, the song was not a hit here, but it went over to England. It was a huge hit in England, so much so, in 2014, some people over there contacted me, and they ended up flying all of us over. And I told them, if my wife doesn't get on the plane, Dr. Steals is not getting on the plane. So they flew my wife over too. Right. And we performed up in Manchester at a club. I think we went on at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the people went berserk. I could hear someone yelling, "He sounds like the real record." Yeah. Grown men were crying. Apparently, around that time, what is that, BBC? Is that what
Yeah. In Britain. Yeah.
They control all the music. And during that era, they let American music come in. And so those people at that time really loved that music. A copy, an original vinyl copy of "I'm Not Strong Enough," in good condition, there were only 2,000 records made, can sell for as much as $1,000. Oh. It's one of those rare records.
Do you have any of those left?
I have a crack one.
But your mom was a big influence then, huh? Because she said, you got to come home and go teach in Aliquippa.
Yeah, my mother was one of those kinds of mothers who would meet you and beat you in the street. One day she was beating me on the side of the street for something I had done. Cars almost wrecked. But she did not play. But I thank God for my mother.
You didn't say, "But Mama, I'm going to make us rich someday."
No, when you got a beating, you had to strip down, and you were not allowed to cry. If you cried, the beating intensified.
Did you have to go get your own switch for her to beat you with?
Yeah, I went and got a twig. My mother said, if you don't go back and get me something I can work with, I'm going to go back and get my own. So you had to acquiesce.
You didn't say, Mama, I'm not strong enough.
Yeah.
Let me play. I just have a little piece of that one. So let me see if I can get that up here.
My mother told me long time ago to let the little girl alone. But I was blind, could not see what harm that little girl could do.
Yeah, I'm not strong enough. That was the first release for you guys.
That was the first. We were greatly influenced by Holland, Dozier, Holland.
Mm-hmm.
So this was our first attempt at writing a Motown song. And so that gave us the concept we call the Mo Philly
I see that.
sound.
And the website, Steals Brothers Classic Recordings,
Right.
is online, and the Mo Philly International.
Right. We partnered with a guy from Detroit by the name of McKinley Jackson. McKinley Jackson was Marvin Gaye's last musical director.
Mm-hmm.
When McKinley was 16, he used to skip school and go down to Motown to play his trombone. The very first song he played on was Ooh, Baby, Baby.
Miracles.
Right.
Yeah.
And when Dozier Holland left Motown to start Invictus Records, McKinley Jackson's band, the Politicians, were the Funk Brothers. So he embodies all of that.
Mm-hmm.
He became our partner. So that's how we have this Mo Philly sound.
Okay. Wow. And it's great. And one of the biggest songs that you had, and correct me if I'm wrong, is one recorded by the Spinners.
Yes, the Spinners.
Mm-hmm. And you were telling me as we were coming into the studio today that you're celebrating the 50th anniversary coming up.
Yeah, next year I'm going to be, in a week or so, I'm going to sit down and talk with Johnny Angel. His band played at the 40th year anniversary, and they're going to play at the 50th year anniversary, and we're going to bring in Russell Tompkins Jr., the original lead singer of the Stylistics, for whom we're currently working on an album project. We're producing 3 songs for his upcoming album.
Wonderful. Melvin Steals Jr., Senior, I did it again, is our guest on Teleforum. I'm Mike Romigh, talking about the Spinners song. And what was the inspiration behind Could It Be I'm Falling in Love?
The inspiration was back in the early 70s, there used to be a studio over in East Liberty called Steel City. And Phyllis Hyman was there. We were there, and we would make recordings over there. And Columbia Records sent Billy Jackson, who produced The Times.
Mm-hmm.
He produced Peaches and Herb. And they also sent Paul Lecca. Paul wrote and produced that song, Na, 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 Na. And he came. And they listened to all of the songs at Steel City. And they only liked 7 songs. And those 7 songs were written by the Steals Brothers.
Wow.
So we had a meeting with Billy
Mm-hmm.
Jackson and Paul Lecca. And 2 songs came out of that. One for the Spinners, one for Gloria Gaynor.
What one was glorious?
Gloria Gaynor had her first hit was a disco song called Honeybee,
Okay.
which was written by my twin brother Matt from Whammo, and me.
Oh.
And it became a big disco record. And the other song was Could It Be I'm Falling in Love? And Billy Jackson wanted a song for Peaches and Herb. And at the same time, Mervin and I had become close friends with Tammy Terrell. One of my frat brothers was her cousin.
Mm.
I said, man, you lie. But she really was his cousin.
Mm.
And we met her, and she loved us. So we thought, well, maybe we can also do this for Marvin and Tammy. But she died.
Tragically.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Brain
so-
hemorrhage?
Yeah.
Yeah, brain hemorrhage.
And she, so we wrote the song. The song is so long because it's a duet.
Okay.
And Tommy, when he took it to the Spinners, we were in the studio cutting another project, and we went over to his office, and he told me, "Man, you got to do something with these words. And if you don't do something with these words, I'm going to do something with these words." And I couldn't let that happen.
Okay.
So I fixed the words up. But the words tell the story of how I felt when I first met my wife, Adrena, when we were both 16. And since I met you, I begun to feel so strange. I could not pronounce her name. It took me a month going up on Saturdays. I finally picked it up. I would listen to what her mother and father call her, Adrena or Adrena. And so eventually I learned that name. And so hearing that name did give me a strange tingling spirit, a feeling. So that's where that part of the song came from.
Let's listen to the Spinners with the Steals Brothers classic, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love?
Since I met you, I've begun to feel so strange. Every time I speak your name, that's funny. You say that you are so helpless too, that you don't know what to do. Each night I pray there will never come a day when you up and take your love away. Say you feel the same way too, and I wonder what it is I feel for you. Could it be I'm falling in love with you, baby? Could it be I'm falling in love? Could it be I'm falling in love with you? I don't need all those things that used to bring me joy. You made me such a happy boy. And honey, you'll always be the only one for me. Meeting you was my destiny. You can be sure I will never let you down. When you need me, I'll be around. And darling, you'll always be.
That's amazing. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love? That's the Spinners with Melvin and Mervin Steals. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love? Inspired by your wife. What did she think of this? Well, when you were writing these songs, you say, "Hey, baby, that's about you."
God, we were a young couple.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, the first time Tom Bell played this recording from Mervin and me, neither one of us liked what he had done to our song.
Mhm.
And he could see it on our faces. And then he explained what he had done. He changed the beat.
Okay.
And at that time, Al Green was very popular. I'm so in love
Right.
with you. And that beat, he gave the song the Al Green beat. And he told Mervin and me, in 6 weeks, this song is going to be a million seller. And then he asked, what names do you want me to put on this recording? And then he told Mervin, if I were you, I'd think about using a different name. And that's where Maestro, Mystro, and Lyric. Everybody thought that Maestro and Lyric were Tom Bell and Linda Creed. No, it was the Steals brothers.
Yeah, that's great. And 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Great song. Still gets a lot of radio play today.
Yes.
Yeah. What are you proudest of?
When I look back on my life and think about where I've been, I made some major mistakes. What I'm proud of is that I was able, my wife and I, were able to stay together and to raise 3 beautiful children, each of whom is a college graduate, each of whom is gainfully employed. And with the music business, especially at that time, there were a lot of drugs. And we were offered the opportunity to move to Philadelphia. And my mother-in-law said something to me that gave me pause, and I didn't move to Philadelphia. Now, recalling how some of my friends turned out, probably would have become a drug addict. Mm. Some of my great friends died from drugs. And so I'm not rich, but I am rich. Yeah. I have a wonderful family. God, as I tell people constantly, God keeps blessing me in spite of me.
Well, we certainly are glad to call you a Beaver County resident. You still live in Beaver County?
Live in Economy Borough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're right. I mean, there were a lot of casualties from the drugs in the late 60s and 70s in the performing industry.
You ever hear that song Van McCoy did, The Hustle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So 7 million records. Mm. I saw him right before he died in a studio up in Manhattan. He was producing an album on Aretha Franklin. And he had been up for 3 nights. And then he took a break and he went over to the piano. He said, I'm going to play a song for you that 2 of my friends were, it's going to be on Aretha's next album. And it was one of our songs. Huh? And then I followed him down to the men's room and I saw him do something I had never seen him do before. He took out cocaine. He made 3 lines. And he rolled up a $100 bill. And he bent over, he went down 1 line, and he got halfway down the 2nd line, and he looked up at me, he said, man, don't ever get hooked on this stuff. And 2 or 3 weeks later, he mixed cocaine and Quaaludes. Mm. He's 39. It took him out. He had just made a $3 million deal with RCA Records. And so I don't regret not being in that environment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing those stories. There's a lot more I know, and we'll continue our conversation. But it's a pleasure to be talking with you and to reminisce about some of the songs and the atmosphere. We talked earlier about a book, and I hope that maybe you'll put pen to paper someday and write that book.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure being here, and it's a great time to be in Beaver County.
Certainly.
When you think 100 years ago, you had the steel mills, and it took off. Now we have the cracker plant. Mm-hmm. I'm a member of the Beaver County Corporation of Economic Development Board, so I've seen this. And so I'm excited. This is a great time to be a Beaver County.
Great. Always wonderful to talk to you, and we're blessed to have you as a person who grew up, born and raised, and call this place home, Beaver County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mervin Steals Sr. I call him Junior because he looks so young.
Yeah, well, there is a junior who is married to one of Judge James's beautiful daughters.
Okay. So we better stay in line, right?
Here comes a judge.
7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. A revived Hurricane Ian has set its sights on South Carolina's coast and the city of Charleston, with forecasters predicting a storm surge and floods after the storm caused catastrophic damage in Florida. With all of South Carolina's coast now under a hurricane warning, a steady stream of vehicles left Charleston on Thursday, many likely heeding officials' warnings to seek higher ground. Ian is now 105 miles southeast of Charleston. Meanwhile, there's good news and bad news in Florida in the aftermath of Ian.
The bad news is local officials have recorded 17 deaths following Hurricane Ian. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says not all the deaths are storm-related. One was a heart attack, the other a suicide. He also said he disagreed with the president, who claimed the storm in Florida could be the deadliest in the state's history. The good news is 700 people have been rescued. DeSantis said some who refused to evacuate are doing fine. Tasha Stevens reporting.
Also at townhall.com, consumers spent a little more in August than the previous month.
The Commerce Department says Americans boosted their spending at stores and for services such as haircuts by 0.4% in August after it fell 0.2% in July. The government's report also showed an inflation gauge closely monitored by the Federal Reserve rose 0.3% last month, which was faster than July. On Thursday, the government confirmed the economy shrank in the first 6 months of the year.
Correspondent Jeremy House. Today's figures suggest the economy is showing some resilience, despite sharply rising interest rates, violent swings in the stock market, and high inflation. On Wall Street, the Dow is now down 101 points, but the NASDAQ ahead 29. More at townhall.com.
If you were lied to when buying a timeshare and want out, you need my help. Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started the timeshare cancellation industry by exposing the ugly truth about timeshare and giving folks the straight facts. I've been fighting the timeshare giants ever since, so no one knows this industry